What's up guys, Brandon Haverilla from RedMax Events. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to dive into a tutorial on Chauvet Showexpress, how to get started, how to address your fixtures, how to patch them into the software, and then we'll dive into a little bit on how to actually program your lights, program some scenes, the difference between the steps editor and the generator, and a few other cool features in Showexpress itself. All right, so the first thing to do is to jump into the fixture itself, turn it on. You're gonna wanna hop in the menu and address the fixture. Now there's two settings or two numbers you're going to want to keep in mind. One is the big number, which is going to be your DMX address. The next one is going to be your channel mode. So in this particular fixture, we're running 15 channel mode. That's important to remember that because when we dive into Showexpress, you're going to need to select the 15 channel mode profile for that fixture. The next number is your DMX address. Now I have these set to 453. It doesn't matter what number you choose as long as you remember that number and you set that up in Showexpress itself. For those of you who don't know, there are 512 DMX channels in a universe. Basically 15 channel mode means that this fixture, which is the Intimidator 375, takes up 15 channels out of the 512. So that means you would have 497 channels available after you patch in one of these fixtures. So for today's video, we're going to be using two of the Intimidator 375s along with two of the Freedom Par Hex 4s. The 375s, I have running a hardwired DMX cable out of the Chauvet interface. There's only two plugs on the Chauvet interface, at least on the 512 version. One is going to be your USB port, which is going to go straight from the Chauvet Showexpress box to the computer itself. The second cable is going to be your DMX output, which is going to go to your lights. Now in my case, I have it running to a Chauvet DeFi hub, which is sending out wirelessly to the Freedom Par Hex 4s, and then out of that box into the moving heads. So let's dive in and take a look at the software itself. So when you first open up Showexpress, this is what you're going to see. Now this actually defaulted to a demo show I had open from before, but for the sake of this video, we're going to create a new light show. So if you go up to the top, File, New Light Show, this is how you're going to create your new light show. So we'll name this YouTube Demo, click OK. Now that's going to create the show folder. Now we're gonna have to go into File, Open Light Show to open that light we just created. So here are going to be the ones you save to this computer. So here's YouTube Demo, just highlight it, click Open. You could also search your actual computer and find it that way. Now once you open it up, this is going to be the blank show that you see. So the first step is patching in your fixtures. So by default, you should be in the Fixtures tab here under Editor. You might be in one of these other tabs such as Live, Standalone, Pixels, etc. And same here, under Editor, there are three different tabs that you could be under. So make sure you're under Editor and then Fixtures itself. This square box icon here with the little arrow is going to be your Add Fixture. Once you highlight over it, if you have the Help feature turned on, you'll notice Showexpress pops up with a little dialogue telling you what the button is. So we're going to click Add Fixture. And now this is going to bring you to Chauvet's Showexpress fixture library. Now this fixture library has a bunch of fixtures built in, but if the fixture you have is not in here, you can email Chauvet support. They'll usually respond pretty quickly and get you the correct profile. I'm sure there are also some other helpful resources like forums online and Facebook groups where you can get profiles made. But basically you're going to want to find the brand of your fixture. So we'll patch in the Freedom Pars first, which is Chauvet. It's under their DJ category, and we're going to search for Freedom Par. Here, Freedom Pars, and we've got the Hex 4s. Now that number I told you about, the channel mode, I'm running my Freedom Pars in 12 channel mode. So this is where you want to remember that number because you can see we have 12 channel, 6 channel, and 8 channel mode. If you don't put this in this proper channel mode, you're not going to have full control over your fixture. So we're going to choose 12 channel mode. And now I have two fixtures, so we're going to come over here, select two of those fixtures. This is just going to save us time by patching them both at once. And then the address, you're going to choose the starting address of the first fixture. So I have mine at 226. So we're going to go down to address 226, which is right there. Select it. Now you'll see it reset the number of fixtures, so we're just going to go back, choose two fixtures at 226, click Patch. There are our two fixtures, 226, and it defaulted the next one to 238, which is what I have them addressed to. The next thing would be to import my moving heads, which are also under Chauvet DJ. We're searching for Intimidator. Here they go. Intimidator Spot, and we have the 375 IRCs. Now you'll notice again, we have a 9-channel mode and a 15 channel. I'm running the 15 channel. We're going to go to address. I have these at 438. So we're going to scroll down to 438. There it is. Click select, number of fixtures, 2. click patch, and there are our two fixtures. Now you'll notice it also added a little icon of the fixture up here, so we can click and drag these. It's going to by default import them in the order of the addresses. So this one would be 438, and this one would be 453, and you'll notice it selects it as we drag it too. So we can move these around in this 3D space to set it up the way we have it in person, which would be our two moving heads up top and then our freedom bars at the bottom. Now once we have that lined up, we can bring our freedom bars down below them. This way we have easy control. We can visualize our show in the software itself. Now once this is done, we can jump over to the steps scene. Now once we're in steps, this is where we could start editing. Now the first thing to note if you have your fixtures plugged in is this little button up here. That is going to be your DMX output. So it looks like a DMX cable. When you turn this on, that's going to send the signal to your fixtures. That comes in handy if you need to program or edit a scene live at a show. If you leave that turned off, you can make your edits without actually affecting the lights live at the show. So you're going to need to turn that on. You'll see we're in the step scene. So this is our first step here. So we're going to highlight that step, grab the pars. Now you come down here. Now if you have the manual for the lights, that's going to be the easiest way to see which fader does what. But you'll notice if the profile is correct, it also shows you here. So here's our dimmer, our red, green, blue, amber, white, UV. Then we have our shutter, some color macros, and some other features of the freedom parts as well. All right. So with the freedoms, we're going to bring up the dimmer. And as soon as we bring up one of the colors, you're going to see the color come on. So there's red. If we bring in green, you're going to get a yellow. We can bring out red, you're going to get a green. So this is a live preview of the different colors that the lights are doing. Now, if we put back up red on step one here, you're going to notice this little slant below each fader. What this is basically how this button or how this scene and this fader reacts when you change scenes in the live tab. So if you turn this off, it creates that straight line. That's going to be a jump, meaning if one scene has red all the way down and the next scene has red all the way up, when you transfer those scenes, it's going to jump straight to red being on. If you put it on the fader like this, that's going to slowly fade it as if I'm doing this. So if you have a red scene and a blue scene and you have them set to this fade, when you fade between them, you're going to get all the colors in between. So you're going to get pink, you're going to get purple. It's going to be a slow fade to the next scene. Whereas if you have them all on jump, it's just going to be a quick transition and jump to blue. So that's the basic programming of your freedom pars. That's how this works with your faders and your features down here. You'll notice we also have a color wheel here, which we can easily grab, and you'll see it happening in a live preview on the lights itself. Now the next thing to do would be to add multiple steps. So if we come over here and we click the Add Steps button, we'll create 4 steps. This would be how you can create a jump scene or a fade, something with multiple colors. So what we'll do is we'll go to each step and basically change the color. So let's bring this one to red. Step 2 is on green. Step 3 we'll bring to blue. And step 4 we'll bring to a teal color. Now, if we go back up to step 1 and we hit this play button here, it's going to play back those steps. Now, you'll notice right here under duration, it's 5 seconds. So there it just jumped. Every 5 seconds, it's going to jump to the next scene. If we want to speed that up a little bit, if you select total here, go down here to the total number, and let's make this 10 seconds. We'll make it half the time. Click enter. It's going to say, do you want to recalculate all the step lengths? Yep. And that's automatically going to divide the 10 seconds by the 4 scenes. So now they're at 2.50 seconds each scene. So if we play this back, you'll see it fades through them a little faster. You can see it on the road cases as well. So now once you have a scene that you like, whether it's a single step or a multi-step scene just like this, you can come over here and click Save Scene As. What this is going to do is save it to the scenes folder by default, but you could save it to your desktop, wherever you'd like. It's going to save this scene so that we could recall it on the live tab. So let's save this as slow color fade. It's fine. We'll save it to the scene section and we hit save. Now, if we go and jump over to the live tab, here's one of our pages. We can easily add a step scene right here. It's going to bring us by default to the scene section. Choose that scene we just created, click open, and there's our button. Now when we click this, it's going to trigger that scene. So if we go back to editor, we turn off the DMX, we go back to live, and we select that scene. The lights are going to fade through that scene that we just programmed. All right, so now if we jump back to the editor and we want to make a change to one of these steps, say we change this color to an orange, all we have to do to save this is click Save Scene. We don't have to go back to the Save Scene As because it's already been saved. So you just click Save Scene. Once we go back here and we recall this, it will go to that orange color when it gets to that selected scene. All right, so the next thing would be to go back to editor and select generator. Now this is another way of programming. So if we go to the freedom bars and we just click and drag over here, we can select what values of the freedom bars the generator controls. So you'll notice if we go to something like red, green, and blue, it's just going to grab the faders. This would be an easier way to program things versus using the faders, but you can come here and knock off a shift so that the lights are slightly off from each other. What the shift is going to do is make it so that if you're cycling colors through a scene, one light is slightly delayed from the next. That's going to be more noticeable if we're doing movements with the moving heads, which we'll jump into right now. But you can do it with pars, you could do it with moving heads, light bars, pixel bars, pretty much any type of fixture. You could also use the generator, which is just another way to program. But if we jump over here, it's going to ask us to save that. We don't want to save that. Now, when we select the moving heads, you're going to notice by default, it gives us a movement. So you'll see the moving heads just jumped up as well, which if we move this around, this is the point they're at right now, you'll notice it moving in real space. So if we create, say, a figure 8 with these dots just by moving them around, somewhere up in this area is usually like the typical dance mode as if you were to have them on totems, and you hit play. You'll notice it's going to cycle through the figure 8. Both fixtures are going to do the same thing right now. But like I said, if we come down to this shift and we knock them off a little bit, now you'll notice they're doing the opposite. And we can meet in the middle, and they're going to be just slightly off from each other. This is a really cool effect if you have 10 moving heads in a line, you want to knock them all off one by one. It's kind of like that domino effect. Now, along with the curves and the figure 8, you could also do lines if you want them to follow a straight line, or you could do points if you want them to just jump from point to point. You'll notice that's a little more quicker movement. So there's some cool stuff you could do with the movements. Now, if you want to just assign this to the pan and tilt of the fixture, you would do that by doing so. Hit stop, hit save scene as, and save this as, let's say, figure 8 to projects and save. Now we could also go back to steps quickly, and what we'll do is we'll program a scene. Let's create a new one by hitting this new page here. Hit new page, select the moving heads. What we'll do now is we'll turn on the dimmer, we'll turn on the shutter so that we have white light, and we'll save this as a scene, white light, and hit save. Now we have a white light scene, and we also have the movement scene that we created in generator, so we'll turn that off. We'll go back to live and let's add those buttons. So the generator one, you're going to actually click a different button for, add generator scene. Then you're going to go to figure 8, which we just created, click open. The step scene, you're going to go to add step scene, and now you're going to see both steps that we created. You're going to see the slow color fade and the white light. We'll select the white light, click open. That's going to create the button for it. Now, if we turn on figure 8, you'll notice the lights are going to start doing that figure 8 that we programmed, but there's no light on it because all we programmed was the movement. So if we turn that off and we click the white light scene, you'll notice they fade into the white light. Now, if we keep the white light on and also click figure 8, now we've got a moving figure 8 with the white light. So that's a cool way to layer scenes. If you want to do different colors with your moving heads, you could do that with different gobos just by controlling one fader at a time in the editor. You'll notice under the white light scene, all I turned on was the 2 faders that we needed. If I had turned on the pan and the tilt as well and saved that, when we hit figure 8, they're not going to be doing the same movement because this scene is actually overriding the pan and the tilt. So if you want to turn one of these off, you could just right click, disable channel, and you'll notice it goes gray again, which means it's not in use. So we do that, and now we're back to just the white light. So we can save that, go back to live, and we're right back where we were with the white light and the figure 8. Now on this live pad, there's some cool stuff you could do as far as rearranging and organizing your scenes. Now right now, you'll notice we only have one page, so we can create a new page for the moving heads, and let's call this moving heads. Click OK. Now we have 2 pages here that we could cycle through, the first page and the second page. What you could also do is come up here, go to the menu, hit live settings. This is where you're going to control all of your different master faders, which are over here. So you'll notice we have 1 fader there right now. We could add up to 8 master faders. And if we hit apply, there are our faders. Now these faders can control master dimmers of the fixtures. They can also control movement speeds or color movement speeds. You can adjust that by right clicking, choosing channels, and adjusting what channels they go to. So if we want them to override both of the Freedom Pars dimmers, we can choose dimmers under the Freedom Pars. Simply X out of this. Now if we go back to page 1, select the color fade, and we grab this fader and we bring them down, you'll notice we're dimming the lights. So we can basically override the brightness of that color fade. Additionally to those, if we go back into button settings, we can add more button boards, they call them. So if we add 4 of them and we hit apply, now we have multiple boards to display our pages. So we can put the moving heads on buttons too, so we can go back and forth. All right, so additionally, if you go under button settings, under each of these button boards, you could choose how many boards display on each. So if we select this drop down and we select 4, click apply, you'll notice now we can display 4 of those boards on one page, just like so. This allows you to organize your light scenes as movements and colors and different fixtures and have more control on one screen. Like I said, you could do up to 8 of those on one of these screens, and you could always select different screens to control them. Now under the Live tab, there's a lot of customization you could do. You can also go select one of these, right click it, and you can rename it. So if we want to name this Slow Fade, we would select that, click OK. You'll notice it renames it. We could also right click this and we can go to Move Button. This will allow us to move it right and left. We could stack these buttons too high, move it right and left, and select where we want it placed. We could also right click, choose button color, and set a color for this button. So if we want to make this button red, we could do so. Now you'll notice when we click apply, X out of this, that button is red, and then it gets highlighted. The other thing you could do is create this and make it a flash button by selecting flash. You'll notice there's a little lightning bolt there. What that does is when we click it and hold it, it's going to cycle through the scene. As soon as we let go, it's going to shut off. So if we cycle through that and you want to do that with, say, a strobe scene where it controls the strobe, we can make it so the lights strobe just when you hold the button in, and then they turn off when you let go. There are some additional features you could do when you right click, such as fader sliders, preset sliders, release all buttons. There's some cool settings you could do pending how you create them in the editor. Now, if we want to get back and edit this slow fade scene, you could simply right click it in the Live tab and click edit. That'll take you right back to the editor, to the step scene, and you'll notice you're adjusting that scene itself. So we can then come in here, we could select the color we want to change, move the faders around, shut that dimmer off, and then hit Save Scene, and you'll save it to that exact location. Now, once you get your scenes programmed, there are a few different ways you could play back. You could select them on the computer itself just using the mouse. If you have a touchscreen computer, you could just touch the screen to select the buttons. You could also use a MIDI controller like the one I have here, which is the MIDICon 2, or you could use your keyboard buttons as a shortcut. Now what I'm going to do is take out my Surface laptop, which is what I normally use to run lights. I'm going to open up my full light show and show you guys what it looks like. All right, so I just switched over to my Surface lighting computer, which allows me to do things like select and touch the screen itself and cause the lights to move. I also have it hooked up to my MIDI controller here, so I can turn the lights on using buttons and keypads on here. Now I'm going to show you quickly how to assign MIDI buttons like this. So if we come to a certain scene, let's say a movement for the moving heads, like this one here, which turns the moving heads on. Let's go to one where they move around a little bit. All we got to do is right click it, choose button trigger, turn on MIDI. So if you go onto the MIDI tab and you select MIDI, you're going to hit learn, and then you're going to choose the button you want. So let's do it to button 17. Click 17. You'll notice the values on the screen jump. Go to MIDI out, turn MIDI out on as well. Click clone, click apply. Now you'll notice when I click this button, it's going to turn the lights back on and off, going to that scene. Now that's basically what I did, was mapped this whole keyboard out to trigger different scenes, just like so. Each button kind of does its own thing. And then I assign these faders to be our master faders. So you'll notice when I move this, the faders move over there. To do that, it's very simple. You're going to go up here to the 3 lines, go to Live Settings. This is where you're going to see all your master faders. So select the master fader you want to control. So if you want to control number 1, you would select 1 and do the same thing. Hit learn, adjust the fader, and then click apply, and that's going to save it. So basically what I did in this show was I assigned a bunch of buttons, a bunch of faders to all the different stuff. So I have full control over my light show just by selecting these buttons. So this one, for example, is a master dimmer. So if I bring that down, the lights are all off. If I bring it up, the lights are back on. So with the movement slider here, which I assigned to a master dimmer and set it to be a speed slider, I can slow down the movement of the moving heads, or I could speed it up like so. I also assigned some buttons to do different prisms of the moving heads. So there's a circular prism. I can go back to a linear prism. And this is also cycling through the different gobos. Now I also assigned one of these buttons to be the strobe, and you'll see that's right in here. All the strobe buttons I assigned to be that flash button I talked about. This way, just when I hold it, the light strobe, and as soon as I turn it off, the light stops strobing. So for example, if I turn on this movement and I want to make them strobe, I can hold it in, it strobes, let go, it stops. That's very handy. This way you don't turn on the strobe and forget about it. Now the other thing you could do is assign keyboard shortcuts. If you're not running with a MIDI controller, you can just run off the computer. So what we'll do is assign that same strobe to be the S button on my keyboard. So if I right click, I choose button trigger. What I'm going to have to do is turn off MIDI and go back to keyboard, turn on keyboard, and select the letter I want. So let's assign it to letter A, click apply. Now when we hold in the button A, the lights are going to strobe. When we release A, they're going to go back to normal. And we could take that off the flash button if we want to tap A every time to turn them on and off, or we could leave it as the flash button. Now, as you guys can see, I laid out my Showexpress so that I have a lot of control over all my different lights. I have different freedom bars in here, different moving heads, and I have a bunch of pages here for all the different fixtures and control. Now that's about it for the basics of Showexpress, how to get your lights patched in, how to address the lights, how to program them. I showed you how to both program step scenes and generator scenes, how to import them into your live, and then how to customize them by assigning them to MIDI keyboard shortcuts, and then even customize the colors and the text, how they display. You could also go back and right click these if you want to rename a page. There's a lot of cool settings you could do if you really dive deeper, but that will all be left for another episode, as well as controlling your live scenes using your iPad or your iPhone. So that's about everything for the Showexpress tutorial, at least the basics of getting started with Showexpress, how to program your lights. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to find me on Facebook, shoot me a message, shoot me an email, leave my contact info down below. You guys can, of course, reach out if you have any questions, and you can also comment in the description below, and I'll respond to your comments as soon as possible. Look forward to a part 2 of this video where I'll dive into some more of the specifics of how I program my moving heads, how to program different scenes like fades and stuff like that, and I'll answer any questions you guys have in that video as well. You could also, as I mentioned, control your lights using an iPad or an iPhone, so we'll leave that for another video also. As always, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on that bell so you get notified when I post the next video on Showexpress tutorials. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.